reality of parenthood.
So, on today's episode, we are very excited to have on Amanda from Future Health Biobank. Hi, Amanda.
Hiya.
Welcome to our podcast, and thank you so much for coming on.
No problem.
So, reason why we've got you on today is on episode 2 of our podcast, I did mention that we had Mila's stem cells extracted at birth, and we had a lot of interest in that topic and people going, gosh, I've never heard about that. Can you tell me more? And they were really, really intrigued. So we just thought it'd be a great opportunity to have you on to tell our listeners a little bit more about the stem cells extraction. So do you want to maybe kick it off with just telling people what is cord blood banking?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me. Basically, the stem cell banking service that we offer is collecting special stem cells that are taken from the umbilical cord and the placenta. We basically extract them, and we process them and we store them. So if there's ever a medical need for that child or for that family in the future, that's always available to them. They actually own the sample, so you've always got that, perfect match. God forbid, should there be an illness later on.
Yeah, brilliant. Amazing. So it's more of like an insurance, isn't it? Health insurance, long term.
Yeah, it really is a bit more of a biological insurance for the family.
Brilliant. So I didn't know that this was a thing, and I said this on episode 2. I had no idea that this process even existed. But obviously, when I was researching, I came across the fact that with George and Isla, obviously it's a bit late for that, they're here, but you also do sort of extraction through the teeth, the baby teeth, is that right?
Yeah, it's actually really amazing. So we're the only company that actually offers this service in the UK currently. So if you've missed the opportunity to take the stem cells from the umbilical cord at the time of birth, there is another fantastic way to get those stem cells at a later date, and that would be from children's milk teeth that naturally fall out around the age of 5. Obviously, it's non-invasive. It's not painful. The tooth's coming out anyway for the tooth fairy, or whatever you do at home. As long as the child's healthy and the tooth's healthy, we can even get stem cells at another time. So for us, it's a really good service for people that have just found out about the cord blood banking, in their pregnancy journey. But may have like existing children that are around that age, so 5 and sort of upwards really. So it sort of lessens that guilt of, I don't want to do one and not have the other, and things like that. So it's a great service to do, and it's obviously a lot more simpler than the logistics of labour as well. So it's really interesting. And so it's the same stem cells that you get from the tissue. It's just that they're further developed. It's pretty amazing. So who knows where we're going to be in the next 10 or 15 years? What other things we can be doing?
So fascinating. I'm just thinking, remembering of my poor guy that was there for 30 odd hours. My labour being like, come on. Get this baby out already.
I was going to just ask how that works with, obviously, the umbilical cord. How does that work in terms of doing that? Because obviously Kelly's labour lasted nearly a week. So
Kelly, bless your heart.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. So we work with a nationwide phlebotomy provider. So this is basically, a phlebotomist is the trained and licensed healthcare professional that only collects, at the time of birth. So they are trained to do this day in, day out, and they're on call for lots of women and families at the same time. It is really just a case of we will send over, your details when you sign up for the service to the phlebotomy company. They'll check, where's the closest phlebotomist to that hospital. And then you'll be given a primary person that will be your main phlebotomist for you to communicate with. They call you, within 24 hours to introduce themselves, so you and your birth partner know who you need to call, when you need to call. You get the opportunity to get to know them a bit before the day, make sure that you're all clear on the process and everything. And then obviously any updates, leading up to the labour, and obviously on the day as well, just give them those regular updates, and then they'll make their way to the hospital. Normally when you're at the third stages of labour, so, around 8 centimetres dilated if it's a natural delivery. Obviously, if it's C-section, then it's more scheduled. So it can make things simpler in terms of the logistics. It's just a case of going in on this date. I'm number 3 on the list for that day, etc. And then they'll obviously arrange to meet with you on the day, ready to sort of take the samples from the placenta. Or obviously, if it's an emergency C-section, then they'll get to the hospital as soon as they can. They just need to be notified, basically. So if they're on call and they're at another collection for somebody else, then you are provided with a backup phlebotomist as well. So you have got 2 people that you can call on in that eventuality. And then there is a third sort of emergency line that can be rung. So it's very rare that actually goes, through that whole process.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've always got someone basically on call, just to give them updates. So, and obviously they'll be allocated as close to the hospital as possible.
I remember
timing
thinking,
is very important.
What happens if it's like 2 a.m. in the morning and they don't hear? They're calling you like, hello, and they're like fast asleep or deep sleep. But I got reassured that as you said, there's plenty of backup, and it's very rare that anything like that happens anyway, that it gets missed or anything like that. So no, it's good.
Yeah, what we always say, Kelly, is that basically, if it is early hours in the morning, don't send them a WhatsApp or a text message, give them a call.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I have so much respect for the phlebotomist, because they literally have to drop everything. They're on call 24/7 from the time that you sign up until they've done the collection for you. So it's a lot of commitment from their side to make sure. And obviously they understand how important it is. And it's a, one-off opportunity to take the stem cells. So they really do a fantastic job for us. So I honestly can't complain.
That's amazing.
Am I right in thinking that there is that person will extract the stem cells, but somebody else will pick them up? Or do they do all of that process?
So that's actually a bit of a misconception that a lot of our clients have. So the phlebotomist's job is solely to be on call for you and to take the stem cells. Yeah. So what normally happens is they'll come to the hospital on the day. They'll get your kit from your birth partner. They'll set up in a separate room. And then as soon as you've delivered your baby and the placenta has been delivered, the placenta will be handed over to the phlebotomist in the separate room for them to take the stem cells. So they'll take any blood that's left in the cord and the placenta, and then they'll also take a piece of the cord tissue as well. They will need to take a couple of tubes of mum's blood on the day, and that can be done before or after, again, depending on the timing of the day. They will then package everything back in the collection kit. And at that point, then it is your responsibility, or obviously the birth partner, to sort of arrange the pickup. So because I mentioned before that they are on call for other people, so they can't be responsible, and we wouldn't want them carrying around people's samples. We'd rather it's your sample. You need to sort of look after it, almost as if it's your baby, until our medical courier comes. So we have a dedicated medical courier that just works for us. So it's really simple. Again, you don't even have to speak to them. You literally, there's a label on the side of the kit, and I'm sure your partner remember this, Kelly. You just send a text message to say, baby's been born, I'm this person, here's the kit code, and this is where I am in the hospital. And then you'll get a reply within 30 minutes to say, congratulations, we'll pick up in 2 hours, for example.
Yeah.
And then, they'll come. And then obviously if you move around anywhere or partner wants to take it home or anything like that, then you've got direct contact with the courier, basically. So it's much easier than having to ring, an external, I don't know, DHL or somebody like that, courier, or obviously having to sort of wait a while. So it's much smoother service, and it's something that I don't believe some of the other banks have.
No, that sounds
either.
Absolutely amazing. I'm like in awe of this whole process.
It's almost as if we know what we're doing, isn't it?
I can't believe I didn't know anything about this. So with the teeth then, the teeth extraction, obviously, is it similar in terms of it? You get a kit and then you have to collect the teeth and then you send, do you send them off? Is that what happens?
Yeah, it's quite a simple process, to be honest with you. So we would sign you up at any point if you say, yes, we're interested in the service. So we can even sign, a child up before the age of 1, but we wouldn't obviously send out the collection kit, as the components have, about a year or so expiry date on it. So what we just ask is that you give us a call, say, right, okay, Jimmy or whoever has a wobbly tooth now. I don't know why I chose Jimmy. I don't know. I don't know any children called Jimmy, but just for argument's sake, sorry. So yeah, little Jimmy, his tooth's wobbly now. Please, can you send us a kit? We'll get a kit sent out, courier next day. And then, basically, as soon as that tooth comes out, ideally within 15 minutes, it should go into the solution in the kit. So that's the trickiest part, is the trying to make sure that your child lets you know when the tooth is wobbly and it's about to come out. Because we have had some quite hilarious stories of what's happened to the teeth. So we've had to sort of stop a few samples coming back to us before. So yeah, we had one where the child had it was already on its way back to us, and they said actually they've just told me they dropped it down the toilet.
Oh
no! Yeah, so we're like, okay, we won't process this one. We won't class this as an attempt. One where it'd been in tissue in the child's pocket all day, and but the good thing about the service, unlike the cord blood, which can only be done at the time of birth, is that you actually get 3 attempts, and it's very rare that we actually get to the 3rd attempt. So you do have more than one opportunity to try and get a good sample, and then it will literally is a case of popping it into the solution, sending it back in the collection kit. It looks very similar to the one that we send out for the stem cells at birth. And then, we culture up the stem cells and make sure that there's healthy stem cells that we can grow and culture and store those for you in our lab in Nottingham. And then they're stored currently, on an annual basis. Stem cells, the way that we store, are proven for 25 years at the moment. So, but it's likely that it will be much longer than that, but we're just waiting for, the validation and that to be proven. So
amazing. I was going to ask about that, about the storage, because I remember when speaking to the company about storage, and they said about a place in Nottingham, and then I want to say they said there was other storage locations. Have I got that correct? Or
so we do have our own facility as well in Switzerland.
That's it. I was going to say Switzerland, and I thought, don't, Kelly.
Talking
rubbish.
We
said it now.
You've done your research there. I'll give you that. So depending on obviously where our clients are based, will be dependent on where the sample's processed and stored. But as having our own facility that we do own gives us more stability. So, if we had an issue in the UK lab, we can very easily divert the samples to our Switzerland lab without having to send it to an external, third party. So we have a lot more control over that as well. And also, we're really, really fortunate in the UK that we have the NHS, but we do rely on it quite a lot. Whereas in other countries, it is more a common practice. So, in Portugal, it's really common. You can go, to a pharmacy and pick up a kit there.
Really?
It's really a lot more accessible. Your doctors will recommend it a lot more here. So there's pros and cons to all the different sort of markets, but it again gives the company more of a financial stability as well. It's a really important thing that we're doing. We could potentially help, save a family member's life by having these samples stored. So we want to make sure that we are around for the next 25 years plus. So, having such a large global presence really does help us. There was another bank that recently went into administration last year that didn't have the same sort of business model. So a lot of those, clients are now coming to us if they're expecting again, and we're obviously giving them a discount for that and stuff. So it's really important to us that we keep as stable as possible.
Definitely. And actually, you just touched on it there, what I was going to ask as well about saving like a family member and, illnesses and conditions. So what sort of conditions and illnesses can the stem cells, once stored, what can they be used to help?
So at the moment with the stem cells from the cord blood, so it's any blood that's left in the cord and placenta, it's proven to treat around 80 diseases. So some of them are quite serious, blood cancers. So leukemias, lymphomas, thalassemia is a big one as well. Again, tumours, things like that. So they can be quite serious, life-threatening illnesses, and that is proven. They have, as an industry and as a form of treatment, stem cells from that source have been used since 1988. So although you might be quite new to the idea and the concept of thinking about doing this for your family, there have been over 40,000 transplants that have taken place so far using cord blood. So it isn't something that is, new. It's happening all over the world. It's just that it's new information to us to sort of think, okay, this is worthwhile doing. With regard to the tissue and the stem cells from the dental pool, they are a lot newer. So with the cord tissue stem cells, they are for more regenerating purposes. So growing of like tissue, muscle, ligaments. But there's also some really amazing trials, and some of them at late stages now as well. Cerebral palsy, diabetes, heart disease, liver and, organ regeneration. There's a massive list. There's about 1,000 clinical trials. I couldn't possibly keep up or list them all. But yeah, the whole point of it really is to have it. And like Kelly touched on earlier, is an insurance policy that I have this and I have the potential. Should I need it, or should my child need this, or a sibling, then I've always got this and it's accessible to me. It's just about having that as an option.
I'm going to actually, a few people asked me when they listened about Mila's stem cells, they said, Kelly, is it something that it's just solely for Mila if she ever, God forbid, became unwell, or if you had another child? No, I'm good, thanks for now. Or could it be used on myself or Connor? Is it just solely for the person that you're extracting the cells for, or can it be used for, as you said, a sibling, it sounds like, or anybody else?
Yeah, it all depends on what they call matching, HLA typing. So it depends on that, and it's very complex. So I will just keep it simple. But if it's for that child, it's their own blood. It will be a perfect match. If it's for a sibling, you've got a 25% chance of a match. And then for parents, it goes, out and out. But again, you have more of a chance of having a match by storing within your family genes, such as stem cell banking, then trying to find a match perhaps through bone marrow or through the public banking system, because unfortunately there isn't a lot of choice, and statistically it can be quite difficult and very lengthy to try and find a match if you don't have this as an option for you. So I think it is important that people know, you know, if I don't do this, it needs to be an informed decision and a considered choice. Okay, if you decide it isn't for you, are you happy to rely on those sources? You know, God forbid, you know, you need them. And that's not to try and, you know, guilt trip or anything. It's just to be completely transparent and honest and just say, look, if you don't have it, which most people, you know, don't because you might not know about it, or you may decide it's not for you, or, you know, whatever your reasons might be. You know, this would be your alternatives basically. So
amazing. So if Jimmy's parent or parent's friend
fictional Jimmy,
hears about this and goes, "Oh, this sounds really interesting." You know, what are the next steps if someone's really keen or interested in going forward with extracting stem cells from their little one? What's the process that they need to go down to start this off?
So in terms of for the dental, sorry, did you say?
So in general, so if they want
in general.
Yeah, so we did the cord banking. So
So was it right? Did you see us at a baby show?
I did, in London. Yeah. I had done some research before. I just heard about it. My husband loves to research stuff like this. Stem cells. He's like it's the future of medicine. So he's very excited.
Does he want a job?
He also wanted to do this episode as well.
Yes. So yes, we met you guys at the baby show. Amazing, and everything you said so far as well in regards to the process, as in this, like it being smooth. Everything happened exactly how we were told it was going to happen. It was amazing. So thank you. But yeah, so, you know, Joe blogs then off the street, obviously has it maybe chat. It might be at a baby show. Is there anywhere else they can talk to you, or just how do they kick the next steps off?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's lots of ways that you can get in touch with us. So, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even if you're on Twitter, we're available 24/7 for any questions. So yeah, really the first sort of things, obviously we have a website, which I can give you all the details at the end. So it would be a case of just finding out some information about you and your delivery. Most hospitals are really on board these days and they do allow collections, but there are only a few in the UK that don't allow private stem cell collection. One of them being John Radcliffe in Oxford. They just don't support that choice for women in that particular area. So we will always ask you at the first time you inquire, regardless of, you know, what avenue that is, you know, please tell us where you're having the baby to make sure we can facilitate, and also what the due date is so we know how long we have to work with it, because people ring us very last minute, and we'd always encourage people to ideally start making a decision 6 to 8 weeks prior to their delivery.
Yeah.
We want it to be a fully informed decision, like I said before. So we want you to ask as many questions as you need, really take the time to read the information that we're sending to you. If you decide to proceed, you know, based on the conversations or emails, information packs that we sent over to you, fantastic. We just ask you to let us know, okay, which you know, stem cells do you want to store, and how you want to pay that. And then we'd send over a contract specifically on whatever service you've chosen. That's all done electronically, so it really speeds up the process, and we're not having to rely on, you know, Royal Mail for, you know, a short turnaround, things like that. And then, yeah, as soon as we receive the agreement, we'll give you a call and just run you through the next steps, just to confirm everything again and again, to give you another opportunity to ask the questions perhaps that you may not have asked us at the inquiry stage, or you might have just forgotten with baby brain or whatever in the meantime. And then what we do again is to confirm it all in writing on an email, just to confirm. We encourage birth partners to actually have that information printed off as well.
Yeah.
So especially if it's a first labour and you might have a nervous partner, it's a really important thing. And, we want to make sure that, they're following the process and everything's, being followed as it should be in terms of the timing and the next steps. It would just be a case of, ideally printing that off so they know what to do and what steps. But if they panic, we're available 24/7, as I've said. So you can call us at any time, ask questions, any concerns. We're there for you, basically, on the phone. Yeah, it doesn't matter what time, day or night, as is the phlebotomist as well. And then, a case of we can get the kit sent out to you as soon as possible. If it's quite a last minute decision, which again we wouldn't encourage, but until that baby's here, it isn't too late. So the phlebotomists that we use have our emergency kit, so they have spare kits basically that they can actually bring to the hospital with them if you forget yours. Or obviously if we haven't had the time to courier one to you, because we would hate for you to miss the opportunity if it's something that you really want to do. That's really.
Can I just jump in actually with a quick question? I'm just thinking, remembering the process, and I think I filled out information about maybe my medical history and a little bit about myself. Is there anything that could stop somebody from having this done? Like, is there any kind of complications medically wise that rules them out?
Yeah, there is actually. So there's a couple of illnesses that would prevent us from collecting, processing or storing. And those are HIV and hepatitis are the two that we wouldn't be able to do. So again, that's why it's really important that we get you to complete that before, because again, we wouldn't want you to go through all that process and then for the stem cells to be refused to be collected, or we couldn't process or store the sample for you. That's something that is important. And we also ask that the medical questionnaire that you completed in the contract, that's done on the day as well.
Yeah.
Because you may have been really organised and say completed the contract 6 months ago, but something may have changed in your medical history that can impact the collection.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important that we get that on the day. And that piece of important paperwork has to come back with a sample. So our lab will know straight away before they even start processing that sample, actually, is everything okay before we go ahead and do that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely. So obviously with this process, there will be like a financial cost, of course. So are there different packages that people can get? Are there different payment plans on offer with your company?
Yeah, definitely. So there is a couple of different ways that people can pay. Obviously, having a baby, we all know, is an expensive time, and it doesn't get much better as they get older, to be honest. So this is a bargain. No, just kidding. Basically, we introduced something called flexi payments when it was sort of COVID times, because people were on furlough. We were all really uncertain as a nation, like financially, what was going to happen as well. So what we decided to do is to reduce the initial fee, which basically would cover the cost of the processing, because the processing is the most costly element of this. So you can do pay the $195 initial setup fee, and then if you're just having one sample, I believe it is then £600, and then you can do cord blood and cord tissue, which most people do, so that's a total of $995. And then if you wanted to do it's called the Premium Plus. So I haven't sort of touched on this yet, but that's cord blood, cord tissue, and something called dietary screening. What that essentially is that we can actually take a small part of the cord blood and test to see whether your baby will have a predisposition to lactose intolerance, celiac disease, and bitter taste. What they essentially are is to tell you like a risk factor that your child may develop those, issues later on. It's not to say at the time of the test they have this or they don't have this, but it's something to keep an eye on, and it's particularly helpful for people, like I said, at the weaning stage. If this, when they're here and they might be struggling to feed, that can obviously be really stressful time to try and figure out what the issues are. Obviously with the bitter taste, if you're trying, leafy greens such as like broccoli and they're just not accepting that, it may actually be that they've got an aversion and it's just tastes more bitter to them, and therefore it's actually not them just being fussy. They don't want to eat the greens. Obviously, and then the celiac, again, is quite an important one. So it can help a lot of parents that may be struggling to get, certain tests from their GP or to get appointments to have this sort of test either on the cord blood package, or you can actually do it standalone with a mouth swab, which I've done on my nephew. He wasn't fussed at all. It was just, like 2 cotton buds. He thought I was just trying to give him some food, to be honest. So he was he was quite happy to let me, rub the inside of his cheek. And we can tell you whether or not there potentially is an issue later. And those really packages, I believe, is 1195. My pricing's a little bit ropey because we have just changed them, so it's not quite fully ingrained. So I do apologise if they're slightly off, but the best way to obviously find out from an actual customer advisor, because I'm business development, is to just obviously give us a call, and the team can run you through all the different packages, send it over on an email with some more information as well. With regards to the flexi ones, it's 195 for one sample per year after the first year, and then 295 for the annual fee for the other 2 packages, so the Premium and the Premium Plus, and the deposit is 295 and 295. So again, it just depends on what you want to do.
It's good options.
If you want to be a bit more traditional and you'd rather pay for it the normal way, so you can do the standard package. So I'm just having a look because you guys will get a 10% discount if you let us know that you heard through Mum Life podcast.
There you go.
So I'm getting those up now. So if you just do the cord blood or the cord tissue by itself with the 10%, it's £2,065.50. That sounds like a big scary number, but don't worry, we can break it down for you. So you only pay £50 initially, and only when we get the samples back and they're deemed successful and there's a good stem cell count and they're all healthy, everything's fine with mum's blood, there's no contaminations. Basically, once we've done all our tests, and it's about 8 weeks later usually, that everything comes back, then you can pay the rest. We do have the option on these packages to pay over 6 or 12 months, and that's interest free. So all we literally do is take the, £2,015 and split it over 6 or 12, and then you get your monthly amount. And then once that's paid off, for that first year, then you just pay an annual storage fee of £75 because that's the one sample stored. If you do the most popular, the blood and the tissue, we call it Premium. With the discount, and these all include the phlebotomist as well, that you'll most likely need, unless you've got a private doctor that's licensed and trained with us. Again, just speak to us about that and we can have a look at that and make sure that they're got all the paperwork in place to collect for you, and they're competent to do so. So if it's the cord blood and cord tissue, it's £2,695.50. Same deposit again, so £50. Remaining balance can be straight away or 6 or 12 months, and then the annual fee, because we're storing 2 samples this time, it would be £120 per year. And at the moment, as I mentioned, earlier, that we can currently store for 25 years, but it's likely to be much longer than that. So we'll just keep you updated once we have more information. If you were interested in doing the Premium Plus, which is the one that includes the dietary screening that I was just explaining, that cost is £2,920. And the annual fee is the same, the £120, and the setup fee is £50. So,
do you know what? That's we did that package, go hard or go home, and it was brilliant because it's actually everything came back really good for Mila, apart from that she has the gene for celiac, potentially that predisposition.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were like, oh no, I'd definitely conicide. But it's just useful to know. We're not getting hung up on it at all. But we just thought, just how important gut health, everything, all that is. We just thought we might as well see. And
that's really good. And now you're going to look out for it, aren't you, Kelly? That's the thing. It's awareness again, isn't it? It's okay. Okay, maybe if she was starting to develop an issue with processing celiac and things like that, then you could go, oh, actually, we had this test done. Let's go to the GP, show them this test that we had, and we go, actually, do you think this is related? Let's investigate.
Yeah. Because something like that can be hard to diagnose, can't it? It could be one of those things that can take a while. They have to rule so many other things out first. So being able to, like you said, take that to your GP and say, actually, look, we have got this, can just speed up that process.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's great. Some great options there. Thank you for that. What about, I'm sure there's many success stories, but are there any ones that come to mind where somebody's used the stem cells that have been extracted and have had a really positive outcome?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So we've released over 200 samples for loads of different things. We've been going just over 20 years now. So the more samples we store, the more statistically that we're going to be releasing. Yeah. One thing to note as well, one sort of plus that you get with us is that we release free of charge anywhere in the world, regardless of who the sample is being used for and regardless of what it's being used to treat. So even if it's, a clinical trial, as long as it's a legitimate clinical trial, and we obviously do all of our checks to make sure it's all above board. But we bear the cost of that, and it can be quite costly as well. Yeah. So we've done that over 200 times as a company as a whole. So we've released dental pulp samples, cord blood, cord tissue. Other samples that we also we store and release for the NHS as well. That's sort of more of a separate part to our business. But again, I think I'm just trying to sort of explain our experience in doing that. And in terms of, success stories, I mean, the first one that we released was actually in 2010. So for a child with a condition called Fanconi's anemia. If you've not heard of that before, which I hadn't, it's basically can lead to bone marrow failure, really knocks the immune system. So it's a guy called Laith in Jordan. So he was in hospital. They were looking for, a bone marrow match. They weren't able to successfully find one for him. His parents were informed about stem cell banking and obviously did their own research in that country and found out actually, as we mentioned before, it can be a match if for a sibling. So they actually decided, even though it's only a 25% chance of a match, they had a sister.
Oh, wow.
Belaith. I don't know if anyone's ever watched My Sister's Keeper. That's probably the most relatable, mainstream story that most people would know about. I don't know all the ins and outs and, you know, what the reasons behind it was, but luckily for Laith, she was a match. So we processed the sample and we stored it. And then when he was ready to receive it, we shipped it to Jordan. He had the blood infused as we'd processed it. I'm really pleased to say, you know, he's living a normal, healthy life as any, you know, teenage boy should be doing.
That's so good.
That's amazing. You know, his sister saved his life.
Wow.
I keep thinking, I know, but it's amazing. And I just think he personally didn't have any other option at that time. So I just think it would have been a completely different story if they hadn't have been informed about this service. So that's one that I personally like to share because it is the first one that we released, the fact that it was used for a sibling as well. And it really was life-saving for him. We've released, you know, lots of other samples. So we have a lovely family that have stored with us a few times now. And their child unfortunately passed around the age of 2 from SIDS. So they were obviously trying to find out, you know, to sort of get some answers as to what had happened. And we actually released some of the umbilical cord tissue to New York for them to do some DNA testing to sort of help them, you know, find out what really had happened, even though he was, you know, no longer with us. And I'm pleased to say that they've gone on since and had another child, and as far as I know, everything is all well. But you know, to be a part of something like that, just from storing a piece of that umbilical cord, you know, when they stored, they were thinking, you know, I could potentially help treat my child, but never, you know, obviously never thought the worst case scenario, what had happened. But I hope it did give them some comfort and some answers as to what happened, and like I say, luckily now they've gone on to have another child, and like I said, all is well as far as I'm aware. It was pretty sad, obviously, but also amazing to be a part of something like that to help families. So
again, you wouldn't even like think of it being used in that way, so it's just amazing that it, like you said, that it could be to help give that family some answers. That story really touched me particularly, because I think I was the person that actually signed them up when they had Rex, is the child's name, and then they sent me a card to say this had happened, and then we donated to SIDS and everything like that, and then to hear then years later they come to us and say thank you so much, and by the way, we're now expecting. It was honestly, I just couldn't contain my emotions.
I feel like I'm about to cry now.
I know, honestly though, but I just think you just don't realise how important something like this can be. So if you are considering it, please really do think long and hard about whether it is right for you or not, because you just never know. You know, if you might need it.
That's what I was going to say to you. You know, if you had a piece of advice for somebody or a family that might be like 50-50, should we do it? Should we not? What would you say to them? I mean, obviously we've just heard those incredible stories, but what would you say to them if they weren't 100% let's do this?
I think it's very easy for me to sit here and say, definitely do it. But I understand that people have lots of different reasons. They may have different priorities. We're in a financial crisis right now. So, you know, we do understand that it's not going to be always accessible to everybody. What I will say, though, is the earlier you start doing your research, the more time you have planning, you know, to plan for it if it's something that you really decide is important to you. And we do have the other payment, you know, ways to pay. So it's less commitment up front. At any point, if you decide, actually, I don't want to continue to store my samples anymore, you own the samples. So you can just tell us, actually, I don't want to continue anymore. So again, if your finances change, But, you know, my opinion and what we've spoken about today is obviously biased. I've worked for Future Health for nearly 13 years. So obviously I think it's a good thing. But there are, my piece of advice would be to go to independent sources. So there was a website that was set up by a lady whose child needed a cord blood transplant, but unfortunately didn't find one in time. So she wanted to basically honour them, but also to help other families so that they weren't in that same situation. So that website, if you want to jot this down, is Parents Guide to Cord Blood.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's a really good one to go to. She's got information on stem cell banks, not just in the UK, but worldwide, because she wants people to be able to have that information. She's even got, you know, details of how to get in touch with us as well, and a bit of information about it. And then there's also a website called the Human Tissue Authority. They are our regulator in the UK, so you have to have a HTA license in order to, you know, procure and, you know, process and store the samples in the UK to make sure that it's all, you know, done by the right person, we're doing the right processes, etc. I won't bore you with all the regulatory details, but yeah, they obviously have their own website as well, so you can go to the Human Tissue Authority, and they actually have a list of questions that you should be asking stem cell banks if you're interested in that as well. So that's also a really good independent source where you can go and think, okay, this is completely independent. These people actually regulate the stem cell bank, so they know what they're talking about and they know what I should be looking for. So I would recommend that you definitely, if you're on the fence, visit those, and hopefully that will aid your decision-making process.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda, for taking the time to talk to us and to our listeners. I'm just fascinated by, like I said, I didn't know anything about this process until Kelly mentioned it. So I've loved finding, you know, more information about this. So could you just let our listeners know your website, how to find you on social media, things like that, in case they've got, you know, specific questions, or if they want to go forward with this process with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So our main website is futurehealthbiobank.com. And then you can literally find us on Facebook and Instagram as Future Health Biobank. If you want to send us an email, it's info@fhbb.com, or obviously you can give us a call if you prefer to have a chat. We're based in Nottingham, so it's 0115 967 7707. So really easy one to remember as well. And just a last reminder, you know, if you do want to find out a little bit more, make sure you get your discount as well for the 10%. Then if you mention, you know, Mum Life podcast, our lovely team will be able to honour that for you, and that would be great. So please do get in touch.
Thanks,
brilliant,
Amanda.
Thank you. And we will also be linking sort of on our Instagram and things. We'll do a link with your page as well for our followers as well, just to make it easier for people to find you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I could talk to you all night, to be honest. So maybe we can do another one at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.